People who used to not believe in ghosts but do now, what experience changed your mind? Story 1. I have a story. So, in high school, I worked at kids' birthday parties. The place was basically a giant gym, and gymnastics dance classes were also held there. One day I came in, and one of the girls I worked with, who was very spiritual and very religious, was totally freaked out. During the gymnastics class she taught that morning, one of the kids was staring up at the ceiling. When she asked the kid what he was doing, he said, "There's a little boy up there," and pointed at the ceiling. Strange enough, but whatever, kids are weird. Later, 2 girls who were working a birthday party before mine came out of the gym and were visibly shaken. A pair of 5-year-old twins went down a slide and then stared at the ceiling. They both said that there was a little boy up there in the same spot on the ceiling as the kid from the morning gymnastics class. We all went in and inspected the ceiling. Of course, it was just a regular gray warehousey ceiling, but we were all super freaked out at that point. During my party, I pushed a little boy on the giant swing we had in the gym. He too began to stare at the ceiling. He said directly to my face, "Hey, there's a little boy up there." We told all of our coworkers and managers about the 3 separate experiences we had today with children from different parties and classes seeing a little boy on the ceiling. The next day we had downtime between parties and nobody was in the gym. There are cameras in the gym that allow parents to see their children playing from the lobby. My manager called us out of the break room. "Guys, check this out." We come out and see the screen, which is streaming from the gym, showing that giant swing going back and forth. Nobody's in there. It's just the swing going. I like to think that the ghost was truly a little boy who just wanted to play and he finally got to go on the swing. Could be worse. At least he waited his turn. Very polite ghost. I'll say this right off the bat. I'm a non-believer, a skeptic to the max, but I do like to keep an open mind. I want that evidence so that I can believe in an afterlife. Give me some ghosts! What I'm saying is, this is the thread for me. And a bunch of different children seeing and commenting about the same little boy on the ceiling is certainly creepy, as is the moving swing, but without getting to see the ceiling, actually see the shadows and all that, this is hard to say. Still, this is better evidence than a lot I've heard, and the end was cool. Story 2. I was always on the fence about ghosts because there was no scientific evidence of them being real, and I was going through a big question phase with religion/afterlife at the time anyway. But my family moved into an old farmhouse when I was 12. This was a very old farmhouse with a build date around the Civil War. The original owner's name was still on the old barn out back, and we found numerous old antiques built into the walls when we completely renovated the place. A few odd-end things happened after we first moved in, but distinct things started happening to myself after I turned 16, but never to my sister until she turned 16 too. The most prominent memory I have, the upstairs consisted of 2 bedrooms. The one bedroom was the room at the top of the stairs. The second bedroom was in a separate room just to the left of the top of the stairs. I had the private room and my sister's room was the landing. When someone walked up the stairs, it was very distinct. You could hear each individual step and the creaks got louder as the approaching got closer. So one night I'm sitting on my bed watching TV or something and I hear my sister come up the steps and go to lay in her bed. So I start talking to her. When she doesn't answer me, I get annoyed and go into her room to figure out what her problem is, only she is not in there. My mind was blown because I know I heard her. I called for her and she had been downstairs the entire time. We never felt threatened, but it did seem that this entity liked picking only on women. Even my mother, who absolutely doesn't believe in ghosts, had to admit some odd things had happened. I think the funniest thing was having my ponytail pulled while I was doing the dishes. I don't know why it was so funny. It just cracked me up that whatever it was felt like playing with my hair. Okay, I'll be that person. People hear things that aren't there. You were watching TV at night and heard a set of sounds that you've heard over and over so often that you knew what it was. People's minds are able to trick them into hearing things sometimes, just because your subconscious is thinking of it. And look, folks, I'm not saying this didn't happen and isn't supernatural. I am saying that this one is just a little too easily explained to win me over, especially taking place in an old house, something known for making plenty of noises. Story 3. My wife and I swear that our daughter used to talk to ghosts when she was a toddler. She was an only child at the time. First instance I remember was her telling me that she was talking to Nana. That's what I call my grandmother, who passed about 15 years before my daughter was born. My daughter was young, and so I hadn't even talked about Nana to her, so I showed her a picture and asked who she spoke to. There were 4 women, 3 of which I didn't even know, but without hesitation, she pointed to my Nana. Okay, no biggie. Some months later, my wife and I are trying for baby number 2. After my wife gets pregnant, my daughter is sitting next to her on the couch and puts her head on her belly and says, "Mommy, there's a baby in there." Okay, maybe that's a coincidence. She overheard us saying something. A few weeks later, my wife miscarries. Maybe my daughter picked up on her sadness, who knows, but she again puts her head on her stomach and says, "Mommy, there's no baby in there anymore." Then, several months and one more very early miscarriage later, my daughter tells us, "I was talking to my brother last night and he said that my sister is coming to live with me soon." Again, she's an only child and has no living brother. We were still trying at this point, but had not taken any tests. We picked one up that night and sure enough, pregnant. When the time came to reveal the gender, I wasn't even interested. My daughter had already said it was a girl. Sure enough, I have 2 daughters. Story 4. Once when I was in university, I went to see my therapist, whom I had been seeing twice a week for about 5 months. On this day, he was uncharacteristically quiet, and I asked him if he was all right. He said he was fine, and we continued through what would be one of our most breakthrough sessions. A lot of repressed memories came up through it that have helped me to heal. At the end of the session, I asked him why he was acting differently today than other days. He said when I walked in, I was accompanied by a warrior-like person. He said he had the overwhelming feeling to perform as best he professionally could that day, and that he got the sense that this warrior had fought a lot of battles to protect me. This would seem coincidental, except for 10 years later, I was living on the other side of the world. I had a Puerto Rican neighbor I would see occasionally and eventually got pretty close with him and his family. One day I was walking by, he kind of gets quiet and weird and then says in broken English, "Do you know there is a soldier who follows you around?" I knew instantly who he was talking about. In both instances, the warrior soldier was described the same. Just over 6 feet, blonde curly hair, wearing primitive warrior clothing, and strangely, a white guy. Neither of these people could have known that my closest brother, who passed away at 14, was over 6 feet tall with blonde curly hair and always was my protector. I'll tell you, I don't have anything for this one. I can maybe imagine a neighbor taking information you maybe forgot that you told them and it influenced them in a way where they got that in their mind. But paired with a therapist saying that, I have a hard time imagining a therapist using that information with you like that. I mean, I guess I could see how this pieced together, but honestly, this gets me a little. Story 5. So my grandma used to live with me. She was in the room next to mine and would get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, which is in my room. There was a drop from her room to mine, so we put a nightlight outside the bathroom so she could see the way. It was like this for about 12 years. Only a few days after she had passed away, I was in my bed with my cat and dog reading a book or something. I remember my cat and dog both waking up and looking at the nightlight. My cat got up and went to the light, pawing at it and making noise. My dog just stayed still, not barking. I would grab him so he would calm down or go to sleep, but he never took his eyes off that spot. That's when I saw what I can only say looked like a light bend around the nightlight. I was positive it was my grandma coming back to use the bathroom and or check on me in the house. To this day, she died about 5 years ago, I still have that nightlight there and turn it on every night for her. I haven't seen her or experienced anything like it again, but I'm sure she's still around. Story 6. When I was about 10 to 14, I had terrible insomnia. I would imagine things and felt incredibly unsafe as though I was being watched, although I never admitted this to anyone. I began only sleeping on the couch with my back against the wall and had to have the TV or some sort of light on. I missed an immense amount of school because of this, so my mom had me see a neurologist. The neurologist diagnosed me with some things, but the crazy part was during my sleep study, I slept amazingly well, no issues at all, and slept in the real bed. Eventually, I got transferred to a children's hospital, and speaking to the doctor, I explained I would see things and felt uncomfortable. They had thought I was experiencing sleep paralysis. When they told my mom, she went ghost white. She pulled me aside and explained she was experiencing things too. She described in detail what I was seeing. That evening, she approached my brother and asked broad questions. Do you have anything weird happen at home? Etc. He also described what we were experiencing. It was then I realized we must have paranormal activity, and I believed it ever since. When we moved out of that house, all my sleep issues abruptly stopped, and I haven't experienced it since. my first instinct is to imagine possible infrasound in the house from wiring or whatnot, which could cause feelings of unease all the way to mild hallucinations. Being all the same family, perhaps you all have something genetically that makes you really sensitive to that kind of stuff. I honestly don't know enough about that to make any remotely definite statements, but more I just see a family really in sync with each other, which is oddly heartwarming in a thread like this. Story 7. My girlfriend's grandfather's ashes were on a little shelf in the living room right next to a very solid/heavy angel statue. Well, one weekend she and I are fooling around on the living room couch, and out of the corner of my eye I see the angel statue fly off the wall accompanied with a deep grunt. Now, when I say this thing flew off the wall, I'm talking 7 to 8 feet of air before landing on the hardwood and leaving a dent where the wing hit. Even if this thing had fallen off the wall, it would have dropped straight down, not soared with force. Well, we both stood there in shock, and I whispered if she had heard the grunt as well, to which she agreed. So we both booked it for the day. Well, that night at dinner, we told her parents what happened, leaving out the naughty bit, and Megan's younger sister burst into tears saying she had seen a dark figure at the foot of her bed the last couple nights but didn't want anyone to think she was crazy. Grandfather that died had mental health issues that caused a lot of pain. Well, after that day, I was a believer. Grandpa's ghost blocked you. Story 8. In 2011, I was studying abroad in Morocco. We were staying at a riad in the Medina of Marrakesh with tall, ornate windows. I had one roommate who was already asleep that night. I thought I saw her sitting up in bed next to me wearing all white. Suddenly, I saw a white hazy thing vaguely shaped like a person floating above me next to the big windows. I was so scared I went into the bathroom, turned the light on, and stayed in the bathtub all night. My roommate didn't see anything. I felt bad for laughing, but all I could think of was you clutching a shampoo bottle or hairbrush and rocking back and forth in the bathtub while looking around all paranoids. I'm always a little reluctant to believe stuff happening in bed at night. As you start to go to sleep or just wake up, sometimes you can have a sort of dreams that feel like they're real, missing out on that moment when you wake. Again, I never want to say that something didn't happen. I wasn't there. I don't know. I can't prove anything. But it doesn't help me believe when the state you were in when you saw a ghost is the same as the state I was in when I saw a huge box of mac and cheese on my dresser. Brains aren't perfect. Story 9. I was visiting my mother after my dad died. She went shopping with her sister and left me alone. I heard my dad as plain as day up in his room. He got up from his computer chair, walked over to the door, and opened it. He walked down the stairs and stood on the last step for a few seconds before walking back up to his room and closing the door. I was probably 5 feet from him in the living room. I just froze. It scared the hell out of me. I'll be right there, God. I just gotta clean out this hard drive and search history before anyone else can see what I was into. Story 10. I was staying in the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, the hotel that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining. Around 1 a.m., I heard what sounded like children running up and down the hallways interspersed with laughter. Opened the door to see what the hell was going on and didn't see anything. Quick little buggers, I thought. Then the next morning, when my significant other and I took a tour of the building, the guide stopped directly in front of our room to tell us the story of young girls whose ghosts can be heard running up and down that same hallway. Story 11. Working at a public pool, I would work alone after hours cleaning the building and the pool. One night, around 2 a.m., I'm cleaning the change rooms. The pool has been closed for 4 hours at this time. I hear the sound of a child's laughter and bare feet running across the pool deck. I go out and scan the area. There's nobody in sight. The doors are all closed and locked. There is nowhere a kid could be hiding. No wet footprints on the pool deck. I recheck the doors and the security monitors. I'm the only person in the building. It was unsettling. There's so many stories about the sounds of children ghosts that I'm not sure if there's just an overabundance of child ghosts running around the world, or there are just gangs of kids who live to prank adults into thinking they are ghosts. Either way, I'm getting old enough that I would really rather they just not bother me when I'm trying to work or sleep. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.